Greetings all. Fascinating conversation in week 15 about grief and loss, considering the case of Alan. In terms of intervention, there are several themes that I want to underscore and elaborate on a little bit. As Jenny points out, joining is critical in this case. You need to build trust, as you say, by listening and being reliable. And particularly in cases such as this, in which basic trust is an issue, it's important for the worker to provide what is called in psychodynamic terms a corrective life experience. That is an experience of a relationship in which it is possible to experience trust in a positive way. Several of you talked about the importance of identifying and working from Alan's strengths. As Ryan points out, it's a big step for Alan to request services, and it would be important to keep this momentum going and not lose traction. And as William puts it, the amount of self-awareness that Alan seems to demonstrate when he discloses his fixation and fear of hurting his ex-wife and child, as well as confessing that if he starts to cry, he will never stop. Those stand out to me about this case. Those are quite remarkable strengths of his. William says, my first step is to honor his sharing and point out the strength that is required to share and seek help. As India suggests, he really does love his family, but fears what he might be capable of. Showing him all of the really great things that he has going for him, helping identify these himself will go a long way toward his healing. Jennifer says he knows what he does not want to do and can identify what he's feeling and doing at times is very serious and can be potentially dangerous. And he really does love his family, but fears that what he might be capable of. Showing him these things will be very helpful. Several of you, in fact, most of you agreed on the importance of making a safety plan as a priority. Jenny points out also that there are limitations of a safety plan in cases such as this, in which the client is experiencing obsessive thoughts and racing thoughts. As Tara points out, I think it's important to assess his immediate suicidal ideation, provide him with drug treatment options, make sure his prescriptions are assessed for his bipolar illness, and make sure he's managing them appropriately. This is a very important first step. As Roanne points out, along with a safety plan for Alan, a safety plan for his ex-wife and child would be helpful as well. It's very important also, as several of you pointed out, that you early on have a full psychiatric workup. Again, is he on the right medications? And he should be assessed, as Jenny and Jose point out, for inpatient in order to stabilize him. Joanne points out that you really need to address the issue of sleeplessness. Lack of sleep, as you point out, can wreak havoc on your moods and thinking. Insomnia also can trigger either mania or depression, given his diagnosis of bipolar illness, and this is very important. Several of you talked about the importance of addressing his current drug use and dealing with that simultaneously as addressing other issues. Jenny suggests getting a request for information from the VA to get a better understanding of what he was treated for there and why they felt he was safe to leave the facility and why there was no follow-up care or in-home check-ins. Several of you talked about the importance of Alan dealing with his history, his early relationships. Katie wonders why he was sent to stay with his grandparents. Was there any discussion in the family about his brother's death? Did he have an opportunity to mourn at that time? And Katie suggests that his lack of connection with others seems to be a result of this pileup of childhood traumas. Several of you talked about the importance of creating an integrated care plan. As Ryan points out, an integrated care team, including physicians, VA services, and therapists, should begin formulating his path to well-being. This would include reviewing appropriate medications and adherence, scheduling focused therapy sessions, confirming VA disability and services, and reviewing the various residential treatment options. Roanne suggests looking into narrative or cognitive behavioral therapy. And Jose suggests that it would be useful to have group therapy with other vets living with PTSD. And in this case, it would also be a context in which he might build relationships. Several of you talked about the importance of grief work with regard to childhood losses, war experiences, discharge from the service, marriages, his relationships with his children. And as Angie points out, Alan has built barriers that are restricting him from accepting love and closeness due to unresolved grief and loss. Sherry wonders whether Alan may feel guilty for not protecting his sister from suffering sexual abuse. You, in your conversation, were very insightful with regard to the difficulty of letting go of losses. As Michelle points out, Alan's losses have become part of his identity. Therefore, in the process of letting go, there needs to be something he can replace those losses with, so a new identity can be created. As Jennifer points out, it's very difficult to let go of something that you have carried around for so many years. I think it will be important to know this and to honor this. Even if something seems negative, it can be comforting in many ways because it is known. The unknown can be very scary and just too painful. This is a critical point. Too often workers make the mistake of attempting to help clients understand that a particular behavior is counterproductive without understanding the purpose that it serves. And every behavior makes sense in context. So if you encounter a wall, acknowledge and respect and celebrate that wall first for the job that it has done. And then think about helping the person find alternatives, alternative ways to cope, alternative ways to be safe. Only then can the wall actually come down. Ryan points out that other things such as exercise and journaling and meditation can provide a sense of relief while also being productive ways to process his feelings. And Sayana also underscores the usefulness of mindfulness. Jenny and others talk about teaching coping strategies. And there was a general consensus among you that it is critically important for Alan to build a social support network. This was a very rich conversation, and I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to delve into issues related to grief and loss, because no matter what context you're working in, it will be important for you to understand these issues, the intricacies of how people process and deal with loss and grief, or on the other hand, don't deal with them. So this was a fascinating conversation, and I appreciate your efforts.